that step over the moon, over the sun. We will continue to take that step. Higher heights, moving on, stepping on, taking that step. Keep on moving on, stepping up, taking that steps. We will continue. We will continue to take that step.
Over the moon,
continue.
We will continue
to take that step.
Gonna have fun. We will continue to take that step. Feeling brand new, getting it done. We will continue to take that step. Taking our step.
Taking that step.
Taking our step. Take that step.
Over the hills, up the mountain, to the top, taking a step. No more spills from the fountain. We won't stop, taking a step.
Take that step.
Over the moon, over the sun. We will continue to take that step. Over the moon, over the sun. We will continue to take that step. Made it this far. We have to keep on, no one will stop us, taking a step, flying to that stop, singing our song, sweep away the dust, taking a step, over the moon, over the sun, we will continue to take that step, over the moon, over the sun, we will continue to take that step, higher heights, moving on, stepping on, taking that step, keep on, moving on, stepping up, taking that steps. We will continue. We will continue to take that step.
Over the moon,
continue.
We will continue
to take that step.
Gonna have fun. We will continue to take that step. Feeling brand new, getting it done. We will continue to take that step. Taking our step.
Taking that step.
Taking our step. Tell me, 'cause I wanna know the truth. Can you tell me? I'm on a journey to find peace within my life. It's time to let go so I can climb to new heights. Nothing can stop me, I know, gonna make it to the end. Love is on my side, and I'm sure I'm gonna win. I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth. Can you tell me? Can you tell me? I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth. I want to know the truth. Can you tell me? It's been a long time that I've been searching for. Then one thing that makes my life complete.
That's right.
Hold on.
Hold on.
I wanna be strong. 'Cause in my heart,
Right, it's a food. Welcome. We want to know the truth. We want to know the truth. Great ancestor, great ancestor. Late great. Or I should say the right on time great. Ankara, I'm in the tap. Putting that comedic spirituality into the music. I want to welcome everybody. I see we have Andre the Maroon from Jamaica, right on. Thomas, Holloman, Clyde, Brandy,
Let me count the way.
Maybe
I can
Edda
focus
Fields, how
on
are
my
you?
ancestors to brighten up my day. I can listen to a sage or
Yeah,
an elder's wise words. Try some deep meditation where the Most High is
Arthur,
served. 'Cause the truth is
Yvette
beautiful, like
Calvin,
children playing in the park. Or
Nazi
inside of rhyme
Rogers,
ciphers where genius is
the
far.
Fool,
Be the
Tessa
dark, the
Tayeb,
light, and all the time that's
Carlton,
in between.
Edwin.
And you can find
Oh,
mad
we got a
truth
full
inside
house
a
tonight.
trance-station.
Full
Drain this
house
into
tonight.
that little voice that be
Excellent
telling you
207,
what to
that's
do. With
right.
a bit of divination, show you what you want to do.
An angel that's walking with you is with us tonight, Tatiana Saheru. We got the Figaro Saracen in the house.
No need to question.
And we are live on Facebook. We're live on Instagram. Hard for me to turn this off, you know. Hard for me to turn this off right here. We have some outstanding guests tonight. How y'all feeling? Put some fire in the chat if you're fired up. Put some fire in the chat if you are full of gratitude. You woke up this morning. You got that African consciousness on your mind. Putting in that spiritual work. Gotta know. We're on a journey for sure. Heads up, everyone. Alafia. Alafia ni. This is Åm Tehuti Khamau from Philadelphia. Philadelphia is fired up right now. Okay, I see some fire. I see you, Sakara. I know you're ready to put that work in. We're fired up right now because we're getting ready. We're just a few days away from Kamitfest. Kamitfest, where we come together and we celebrate. We celebrate our great ancestral past, and we celebrate in advance what we know we're building right now. So tonight we are blessed to have two amazing guests who will be with us live and in person at Kamitfest 2024. Let me make sure you got the info here. Kamitfest 2024. All right. Yes, we have an all-star lineup with Dr. James Small, who's going to be with us in a few minutes, Dr. Malefe Asante, Dr. Akmal Muwakil, Dr. Salim Faraji, Dr. Edda Fields Black, and of course, the originator of this cultural celebration, this remembrance. You know, we got to create our own holy days. Shekem Shechem Ra'un Nefer Amen will be in the house live in Philadelphia. But if you can't make it, oh, I feel sorry for you if you can't make it in person. But if you can't make it in person, you can join us. If you can't get out the box, you can be in the box. You can join us from anywhere in the world, which is great. And also, you'll get a recording of this great event. So if you can come Saturday and Zoom in on Sunday, or maybe come on Zoom on Saturday and shoot up here on Sunday, or maybe you can hit part of a day, you'll get the rest of the day as a recording. So you're not going to miss anything. Well, you're going to miss a few things, but it's going to be good enough. It's going to be good enough. Shekem Shekem's releasing a new digital course called Empowering Your Manifestation. That's going to be the highlight, the keynote on Sunday. And we're going to talk to him this Thursday about that. But we're going to have a special friend, somebody that we admire. You'll meet him, or you'll reacquaint yourself with him in a few minutes. Dr. James Small is going to be with us, as well as a number of other distinguished guests. There's going to be some powerful healing going on with Qigong and Tui Na. And we also, let me see if it's on here. Let's see now. It's not on here yet, but by the time we are done, you should have a link here to sign up for some holistic medical treatments. We have a powerful medical treatment facility that we roll in here with two doctors, one of complementary medicine and one of Chinese medicine, in addition to Dr. Akmal Muwakil, who will be doing treatments, assessments, you know, our health is so vitally important. So you will get a chance to get a tune-up, right? To get your energy up, to get yourself right. Michelle, you can zoom in by clicking the, well, you can't click it, but you got to copy that bit.ly Kamitfest 2024. Once you hit our landing page, you'll be able to buy a ticket, and we will send you the links to get on Zoom. But without further ado, we want to spend our first hour with a very special person. She's special to me, and she's special to a lot of us. I'm going to bring her right up here on stage and talk about her. Etepu, and good evening.
Etepu, good evening to you, Oa.
Dr. Edda Fields Black, aka Kepra Reshe Sa. Yes, she has a Kemetic Ren. She is, in addition to being a distinguished professor at Carnegie Mellon University, an accomplished author, historian. She's a powerful priestess as well. Powerful family member. You know, she has a great family, and she's done amazing work in the African community, not just in Philadelphia. She's also, from what I understand, crossed the bridge, and she's enlightening a lot of other folks, some of our distant children, right? Historically speaking, who have been alongside her in this journey that she's taken around this incredible work. Oh, it's heavy, man. I gotta do exercise just to hold this joint up. Look at this. Combahee. And some of you may not be familiar with the word Combahee, with the place Combahee, with the river. Very interesting. Heteru clan, right?
No, Second clan, Heteru IO.
Oh, Heteru. Okay, Heteru is up in there. I mean, look at this work. It's a piece of incredible work. Okay, and I'm not going to steal your thunder. I would like you to announce at the appropriate moment some of the stir that's happened. Yes. But this centers around Harriet Tubman, and just an amazing story. And, you know, I just want to start with just talking to you a little bit about, you know, what got you to the place that you're at now. Not just in terms of the excellence that you've reached in terms of your profession, mm-hmm. but in terms of your consciousness and your African-centered spirituality. Mm-hmm. Because when I think about Harriet Tubman, and I think about all the other unknown heroes that we have, and I think about the conditions that our people were in, mm-hmm. and I think about the power of the spirit to, when you've had all kind of assaults to your body, mm-hmm. you've seen your family torn apart, mm-hmm. you've been terrorized, you've been tortured, you've seen murders, you know, you've been worked half to death, and somehow you have the ability mm-hmm. to envision a mighty change coming. Mm-hmm. You know, that's just, every time I think about our ancestors, that's what I think about. Because when I look around and see what's going on in our world, in our community, it's very easy to not have any kind of hope, vision, projection of a change. Mm-hmm. But I think about them and what they had to face on a daily basis, and how they had that ability to see something beyond that. Mm-hmm. So why don't you start just introducing yourself, and just let us know, how did you come to a place of African consciousness and African spiritual consciousness?
So as Oa has said, my name is Kepra Reshe Sa. Doctor.
Can I have you just, is there a way you can tilt your camera down a little bit?
Yeah.
So there we go.
There we go.
Because we're on Instagram. Peace, everybody on Instagram. I'm going to jump on.
Okay. Dr. Edda Fields Black, and I am a professor at Carnegie Mellon University in the Department of History. I also am the relatively new director of the Humanities Center for Dietrich College at Carnegie Mellon. How did I come to my African spirituality? Well, this is an interesting question. Um, I wasn't raised in African spirituality. I was actually raised Episcopalian, of all things, and began studying with Osiris Set in college, and was really searching for truth, was searching for something that made sense, and didn't necessarily find it in all of the Christian denominations that I was exposed to. I started actually in Atlanta, and I will say that as much as as much as I could see it resonating with my life and with my spirit, I was very young, and it took me a while to really decide to commit my life to African spiritual culture. So I studied in Atlanta. I went back to church when I was in Gainesville. It wasn't until I came to Philadelphia. I also studied with ASCAC during my time. I was a graduate student at University of Pennsylvania and became one of the co-founders of ASCAC's spiritual, I cannot even remember what we called it, but we studied spirituality. Whereas, the rest of ASCAC is pretty much focused on history and politics. And we really studied spiritual culture and its application, not just in a theoretical way. And Halima was the sister's name who was my senior co-organizer of this study group. And she was an Akan priestess. And so I learned a lot from Halima. She made her transition in the late 90s. So it was really after that experience and after, going back and forth to West Africa and going back and forth to church and seeing what didn't work, seeing, just really experiencing what made my life make sense. And I was back and forth to West Africa doing research, ended up coming back to Philadelphia, and that's when I joined the Philadelphia HESP, and then left and went to Cleveland and met my husband in the Cleveland area, Cleveland, Akron, and met him in Osiris Set, and got married and started our family. So it was a process. As I said, I was probably a freshman in college when I first started studying. And I started college early. So I was 18, probably, at least. I might have been 17 when I started studying with Osiris Set. So just so many blessings and so many ways that my spiritual culture has just ordered my steps in every aspect of my life.
Yes, and that's really wonderful, what you're saying right now, because I know there's a lot of our people, younger people, particularly, that are searching, that are feeling, a need for a purpose in their life, an explanation for higher meaning. I just want you to share a little bit, because Osiris Set Society, which, Osiris Set Society is what we're celebrating in Kamitfest. And I just looked at one of our old shirts and realized it's been 29 years since we started celebrating Kamitfest.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
And
wonderful.
our way of life involves deep training and initiation into meditation, which is based on the resurrection, the reconstruction of the ancient Egyptian philosophy or cosmogony. And it also involves, rituals and use of divination and things, like that. So I really wanted to start with that, because somebody might look at you as, University of Pennsylvania, Carnegie Mellon, professor, author, and all of that, and have no idea that what the core of your practice is. So if you could just take another couple minutes and share just how your practice has enabled you, empowered you through the various stages of your career? Because a lot of folks out here struggling, they might need to know about that.
Yeah. So I have to say that the reading that really helped me start putting the pieces together was my incarnation objective. Heteru to Ma'at to 17th hexagram into 58. Really understanding the role that Heteru plays in my life and that Ma'at plays in my life. And that I needed to learn that my joy came from within and could not be taken away. And that it's my role to share that joy with other people, that other people depend on me for joy, which it sounds easy, but it can be very challenging. Also, knowing my clan, I'm Sekert clan, but I'm Osair Sekert. And so the capacity for deep thinking and hard work and obstacles and setbacks and delays. And really with the Osair, a lot of times people don't know what clan I am, right? Because I can manifest anything I need to manifest whenever I need to manifest it. And knowing though that even though this is this is where I'm comfortable, right? I'm comfortable in the library. I'm comfortable in the archive. Sometimes I just want to go and hide. I'd rather be underground working in things that people can't see. But my IO is actually to be, much more front and center and on stage, if you will. And lastly, I can talk about my career reading. And these are just three, two major readings in my clan that literally have ordered my steps, right? I am a historian. I have been a historian since I was a child. My mother is a historian. She's an archivist. She's a founder. And mom, as a young child, would send me to my elders' houses. So I grew up my mother's family is from the Bahamas. We grew up in a yard, meaning that my neighbors were my mother's aunts and uncles, all on the same street. Okay. House across the street, back of the house, was all family. So she would send me to my elder's house, my great uncle and aunt's houses, with a tape recorder and a list of questions, and I would collect oral histories. And it did not take me long before I didn't need the questions, or I had asked mom's questions, and then I had my own questions. So I grew up as a very young child with a sense of history. And it was really, I guess, in college that I decided to be a historian. However, my point is that when I went to Philadelphia and when I, really made the commitment to live this way of life, I did my career reading. And it is Osair to Sheps to 41st hexagram straight up. So what I can see in that, and what I at the time didn't necessarily know what that meant, was that I had to bring everything together. I am a historian. I'm very much a historian. And I think with Combahee, I have proven I am a historian's historian. I can research and interpret written sources better than many. But I collaborate with scientists. I collaborate with artists. I wrote a libretto on which my collaborator wrote a symphony about rice and slavery. Okay. And now, as director of the Humanities Center, I am supporting other humanities faculty in interdisciplinary collaborations. We talked today about, had a meeting with University of Pittsburgh today about taking our research off of the shelf, right? And creating these real world applications for myself, I like to take my history off the shelf and put it on stage. So that's the Osir aspect of my career. And then, of course, all of my work is about our ancestors. So that's the chefs.
So if you're just joining us, we're talking to Dr. Edda Fields Black, also known as Kepa Rishem Sa. She's just released a masterful work, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. What she was sharing, if you're not familiar with the terminology, is that we use an oracle system to be able to guide us in critical decisions in our lives. We use an oracle system to direct what aspect of God, or some might call an archangel or Orisha, Obosum, is in charge of helping us to manifest our career, or to help us to be successful in our family, in every major area of life. So this is the African practice where spirituality is a technology. It's not just a belief or an expectation that some higher force will assist you or protect you. You have to arouse your connection and live according to certain laws. And that's what she's been able to do. So let's get into this book. And I want to get into this book, but I really find it so fascinating, your personal connection, your history, your ancestry. You talked about a Shep's reading, which in our culture points to understanding your ancestors, understanding your family line, and even far beyond that, and knowing your history so that you can continue the positive legacy of your ancestors. And I don't want to talk too much about it, but Dr. Small was speaking about in one of his lectures about the close connection between us and our ancestors, and how that is so central to African spirituality or spiritual technology. So share with us your background in this connection. And the other thing he was speaking about was, which you mentioned, was the technology that our ancestors brought to this country, not just brute labor, like we were, beasts of burden or something like that. It was the technology that we brought that enabled the the building of this country and the industry. So please share about your Gullah background and how it relates to work. And then we have to find a time to hear the story of your reenactment of this event that happened.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so first I will say that the first part of my career, I study rice. I study rice farmers in pre-colonial West Africa and enslaved laborers in the antebellum period in South Carolina, coastal South Carolina and Georgia. And so my first book is about the development of rice growing technology among peasant farmers in the early pre-colonial period in the Upper Guinea Coast, today present-day Guinea. And I started, that book was published first in 2008. And shortly thereafter, I started the next book and started doing research in South Carolina. And for a while, even before the first book came out, I would lecture in South Carolina because, of course, that was the location of the coastal, of the commercial rice industry of, the United States before the Civil War. So I was always making that connection in my work. Now, my father was the last of his siblings to be born in Green Pond, South Carolina. Green Pond happens to be, or where Daddy was born, happens to be about 2 miles from where the Combahee River Raid took place. And there is nothing in that region except rice plantations, former rice plantations and rice fields, okay? Even to this day. And I, in 2013, went down to give a lecture. I actually had 2 lectures. I had one in Charleston at the end of the week, 1 week. I had the weekend, and then the next lecture was on Monday up in Columbia at University of South Carolina. And for whatever reason, that weekend, I decided to start my family history. And my cousin, a couple of years before, had given me an envelope. He said, "Here, Miss Historian, this is yours now. You finish this." He'd gone, I guess, to the library or to the courthouse and consulted the census and wrote down the names of our ancestor that he found. This was Hector Fields, father to son, down to my grandfather. Okay. So he wanted me to take that and to run with it, to finish the family history. So I figured I'm in town for the weekend. This is not what I'm trained to do. I'm a historian, I'm not a genealogist, but I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I started by going to the cemeteries. We went back to South Carolina every summer. At my mother's insistence, we took my paternal grandmother back to visit my paternal great grandmother, her mother. So we also went back for funerals. So I went to the cemetery where my grandparents are buried and my great grandmother, where we went back to bury people. And I walked around the cemetery and I took pictures of all the headstones and everything. And I thought, where is the Fields family buried? So I called my cousin, who was the elder cousin. He was the patriarch of the family at the time. And he gave me the name of a rice plantation. Okay. And I Googled this rice plantation. It was owned during slavery by one of the families whose papers I was studying for my new book. So, because I had all of these connections with people who were interested in rice, I got on the phone, and people who study rice in Carolina, I got on the phone and got access to the plantation, private property. I got an appointment. I'm going out on Sunday after I go to church with my family. Long story short, we got to the plantation and we got to the cemetery, and one of my ancestors' graves was open. It was full of water and his skeletal remains floated at the top. And I have to tell you that that day, that experience changed my life, and it changed how I thought about history. It changed how I understood what I was supposed to do with history as a historian. And I'm not saying that this was an immediate change. It was not. It was something that happened over a period of time, but it was the single most impactful thing I think that has ever happened to me in my life. It's as if my ancestors had put their hand on my shoulder, okay, and said that there was something I was supposed to do.
What an incredible story. I mean, and those of you who are listening in, and I know there's got to be some reaction in the chat here, because when you hear about Seckert, you hear about Shep's reading, and to see a manifestation like that is just so amazing. And I wanted you to pause for a second just so people can kind of digest. When you say rice farming, okay, we eat rice, we know what rice is. Give us a sense of the scale of how the production of rice affects and affected the development of the United States, and what you found out about what it takes to grow rice, and where that knowledge and tradition came from, even from what I understand in your own line, going beyond the Americas.
Yes. So there were almost 300,000 acres of rice fields in South Carolina alone. And I work with a team of scientists. We've mapped South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, and Florida. This was the area of commercial rice growing in the United States before the Civil War. So you have to think of the fact that before there were rice fields, this was all cypress swamp. Okay. And some of these cypress trees could be between 10 and 12 feet in diameter around. They could be 10 or 12 feet wide at the base. And so enslaved men, not only they chopped those trees down, pulled up their roots, and then chopped the trees for wood. And that wood was actually used to build an irrigation system. Okay. They flattened this land so that it became, as one historian has said, as level as a billiard table. This is a swamp. And they're making it as level as a billiard table. And then creating embankments, earthen embankments in the soil, in the ground, so that they could trap fresh water. And they call them dikes, a grand dike along the edge of tidal rivers like the Combahee. And that taller, wider embankment would hold the rivers back from the rice fields. All of this was done by hand. Okay.
What period are we talking about, and what type of technology did we have? Did we have sawzalls and tractors and?
Nope. No, and you could, even if you had it, you couldn't drive it through the swamp because you wouldn't get very far. So we're talking about starting in the 1750s. For tidal rice. Inland rice begins closer to 1700. People had axes, they had baskets, and they had planks of wood, baskets and planks of wood to move the earth. And one of my colleagues, who's an archaeologist, has estimated that on one branch of the Cooper River in South Carolina, enslaved Africans moved more earth than was used to make Cheops, which is the largest pyramid in Egypt. We've also, my team of
known also as Khufu.
So known as Khufu.
We're talking about the Great Pyramid.
The Great Pyramid, the Great Pyramid, exactly. And that's
so
one
just
branch.
Say that again. I'm sorry. That was one
branch of the Cooper River. And my team of scientists and I are in the process of quantifying this and think it's closer to creating the Panama Canal. But again, doing it by hand, moving all of that earth with baskets and planks of wood. So because it's a swamp, this was also a very deadly disease environment. The records talk about the sickly season in South Carolina. That season lasted from mid-May. The planters, the white people, would leave and they wouldn't come back until November. Okay, after Thanksgiving, after the first hard frost. Because rice grows in water, it grows in standing water. Standing, stagnant water breeds mosquitoes, and mosquitoes transmit malaria. Okay, and this was deadly to the white folks. It was also, there were Africans who had the sickle cell trait, which is, deadly in its own right, but does provide some natural immunity to malaria. But malaria still made Africans very sick, right? And chronic malaria made people very sick. It shattered their immune systems. And many people died from other things like respiratory illness during the wintertime, or pregnant women, giving birth to babies that would fail to thrive. And babies, young people and elderly people whose immune systems were either underdeveloped or just completely shattered, whose lives were cut short. So malaria was pretty bad, for Black people as well as for white people. So there were also snakes and alligators. Even today, and I'm here to tell you, those waters in those rice fields are infested with alligators. Infested with alligators. and they would lay eggs in the embankments, in the dikes. So you can imagine enslaved men who were forced to go out there and repair the dikes or build the dikes, turning that earth and encountering a 9 or 10-foot alligator. Those men, many of them, the ditchers were known as alligator hunters. But as I write in Combahee, and when the Combahee River raid happens, the enslaved people are in the rice fields at 4 a.m. And I'm here to tell you, you cannot see your hand in front. I cannot see my hand in front of my face out there on the Combahee River at 4 a.m. And they would be forced to work in tasks. So have an allotment of work that one had to finish by the end of, when you finished it, that was the end of your workday, okay? At least for the plantation owner. But that allotment of work was always set higher than the average person, than that person could actually do, okay? And children would be put in the field next to their mothers, not with their mothers, next to their mothers. So to do their own task, they might have a half of a task depending on their age. You can imagine, I can imagine being a woman in the rice fields. I've walked a mile from the slave cabins, can't see my hand, let alone the snakes at my feet that I have, passed, the copperheads, the water moccasins, the rattlesnakes. I'm standing in the rice fields in muck up to my ankles at that time of year. My child, who I can't see either, is in the adjacent field. And even if the alligators are not going to bother me because of my size, that's what some people say, the children, right? The children were vulnerable. And you see all these racist caricatures after the Civil War of Black people as alligator bait and Black children as alligator bait. This is where that comes from. This is one of the places where that comes from in a very deranged imagination. So these were very deadly and pestilential working conditions. And this is one of the things that really struck me, having worked first in West Africa, where rice is grown for subsistence by family labor. And the technology that's developed in West Africa is what is used to lay the foundation in South Carolina. This is
when our ancestors were prisoners of war and brought from those West African areas, they brought with them the technology from their generations and generations of experience and built the rice economy in this country.
Exactly.
Well, we're here to introduce y'all to this incredible story and this incredible woman's research and life work. So interesting. Your pre-marriage name is Fields.
Yes, it is.
Your ancestors back to West Africa.
Yes.
And I understand there was some rice farmers in your ancestry.
Yes. We do think so. From the Upper Guinea Coast, from Sierra Leone, and from that Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau area. Yes.
So I want to get to, in the short time we have left, because you got to come on Sunday, and hear this story live. And we've got some surprises for you, and it's going to be very powerful as we tell this story. We need to get our children, we need to get our younger people, young folks, to sit in the circle and hear this and experience this live. Just amazing. But you actually and I want to get to exactly what the Combahee River Raid was and your experience in experiencing it yourself.
So the Combahee River Raid took place June 1st and 2nd of 1863. Harriet Tubman had been sent down. She went down to Beaufort, South Carolina, after something called the Battle of Port Royal, which the U.S. Navy occupied Port Royal Sound, and the U.S. Army occupied Beaufort, Port Royal, and the Sea Islands. So this was U.S. occupied territory, and Tubman came down to work as a spy for the U.S. Army. She gathered the intelligence on which the raid was based. She led a group of spies, scouts, and pilots, a group of 8 or 9 men who worked under her. And number one, the first thing they do is they found the men who were forced, enslaved men, okay, who were forced to line the Combahee River with torpedoes. And they took the men back to the site. They oversaw the removal of the torpedoes, and they opened the river up to the U.S. Army. Now, on the morning of June 1st, the raid left from Beaufort. It went through the mouth of the Coosaw River and up the Combahee River. They burned 7 rice plantations. They burned a pontoon bridge. And we've just talked, a pontoon bridge is a wooden bridge that could easily, it was made of boats, made of canoes. And so it's something that an army could easily lay down and they could take it apart and take it up. So let's say they get across it and they want to stop the other side from getting across it, they can take it up relatively easily. So this particular pontoon bridge across the Combahee River was used by the Confederates to transport rice, right? And to transport rice from the Combahee plantations and export it to England in particular, despite the fact that the U.S. Navy had a blockade a little bit further south. So there was supposed to be this blockade. They were running the blockade by going up these smaller rivers like the Combahee. So they burned this bridge and cut that supply line so that the Confederates could no longer use the rice to provision the troops and to feed Confederate citizens. And lastly, 756 enslaved people liberated themselves, okay, within 6 hours. And if you think about Harriet Tubman, she's known best as the most famous conductor on the Underground Railroad. We know that she made approximately, we think it was about 13 trips back into bondage, and she rescued about 70 people. We also know that she gave detailed instructions with which another 70 people liberated themselves. Okay, that's over a span of more than 10 years, from 1849 up until right before the Civil War. South Carolina, this was 6 hours, and they liberated 756 people. And this is Tubman, her men, the 8 or 9 spies, scouts, and pilots, Colonel James Montgomery, who was the commander, and the 2nd South Carolina Volunteers, a Black regiment, about 300 Black soldiers, and 1 battery of the 3rd Rhode Island Heavy Artillery. And they put all of the freedom seekers on the boat, on the U.S. Army boats, and took them back to Beaufort, where they were free. The next morning, 150 of the men, ages 14 to 70, and the 14-year-old was 14 and the 70-year-old was 70, joined the 2nd South Carolina Volunteers, and they went on to fight for the freedom of others as well.
After escaping those conditions, finally, they went back.
They went back. They went back to help other people. They went back. So when I wanted to tell this story, of course, I wanted to tell the story of Harriet Tubman, and the Civil War was really the least known chapter of her legendary life. So I wanted to find new evidence about her Civil War service, which I did. And I gave you a little sample, but there's more. I also wanted to tell the story of the freedom seekers. I wanted to tell the story of the people Harriet Tubman freed. And I wanted to tell the story of the Combahee River Raid from their perspectives. And so that's what I do in Combahee, and it has not been done before. And I'll talk more about this on Sunday. It has not, these sources that I've found that in which formerly enslaved people are talking about their lives, their loves, their marriages, their childhoods. They gossiped. It's primarily the U.S. Civil War pension files. And I like to say that reading the pension files is like listening to grown folks talk. Except these grown folks were my great, great, great grandparents. Okay. Imagine being a child and you're sitting at the table and the grown people are starting to get loose and starting to tell stories. And this is like the elders now from when they were in the prime of their lives, when they were courting and before they got oh my goodness, they told it. They spilled all the tea. Right? They would start talking about, well, who was going to church and who wasn't going to church, and who got put out of the church, and who really wasn't married and they were shacking, and who, and these are, as I said, these are enslaved people. This is what historians have never seen before from the slave quarters, right? They are telling their own stories. And they're talking about their weddings and who stood with them and who married them and what the ceremony was like and the births of their children and who visited them and who attended the women. They're talking about, things that mattered to them because they're trying to help each other get a pension. And trying to show their relationships to one another. They're talking about family members, sometimes going back 3 generations. And if you think about it, as Black people in America, we have people in our community who can't go back 3 generations. These are enslaved people saying, this is the name of my parent, my father, this is my grandfather, right? This is my uncle, this is my cousin. This is how I'm related to this guy over here. He's testifying for his comrade. They would talk about where they were held in bondage. I was bought, I was mortgaged, and then I was sold, or I wasn't sold, but I was turned over from one family member to another. And I'm able to document all of that in Combahee and recreate this Combahee community.
What do you think the impact of this research technique that you were led to has on the case being made for reparations?
Yeah. Well, a lot of times when the case is being made for reparations, people will say, oh, that was so long ago. And oh, there's no documentation. What I'm showing in Combahee is that actually for millions of African Americans who are the descendants of slaves, there is documentation. Because if you have an ancestor, as I do, and in the course of this research, I was able to confirm and to discover, because we knew his name is Hector Fields, but to confirm, this is my great, great, great grandfather, that he fought in the Combahee River Raid.
Wow.
So if someone has an ancestor who fought in the U.S. colored troops, there's a chance that the person has a pension file or his widow, right? And if so, there's the potential that they can identify their enslaved ancestors and identify the places where their ancestors were held in bondage and by whom. And as I said, what I do in Combahee, I document it, right? If they said they were mortgaged by this person and then they were bequeathed, I was turned over, this person died, so I got turned over to his son, I have documented that for about 85% of these transactions. And these are public records. These are public records in the South Carolina State Archives on microfilm, and many of them now are available on Family Search and Ancestry.
You know, this is so amazing, and you owe a great debt of gratitude to Asar Set, because we brought you that wonderful husband of yours. and you all are just a power couple. I remember I brought some young people to Pittsburgh, and he had curated an exhibit at this Smithsonian at the Heinz Museum, right?
Yes.
And it documented the financial side. We had names.
Yes.
He had what they call today receipts. The names of families that became wealthy from these industries, and how it was just the backbone of what made America a financial power, which translated to it being a military power.
Right.
So how did that happen? The two of you? I mean, what is shared destiny, right?
Yes, it is. It really is. It really is. How did it happen? The rituals, the oracles, and the ancestors.
All right. I hope y'all are listening. Right. So, well, you talk about finding somebody who is on the same destiny path as you. Just amazing. And if you're fortunate enough to be with us in Philadelphia this weekend, we have another power couple like that in Asar Set, and they are, a doctor team. Dr. Atangwe and Dr. Dedench, a doctor of complementary medicine, somebody who you can counsel with, that can help you understand how to make that transition or that complement between what you might have to be taking right now as far as pharmaceutical medication and using herbs and Chinese herbs and other therapies. And her husband is a advanced practitioner of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. So, I have a number of children, and when we think about hooking up with somebody and starting families, you want to be on the same. You want to be guided by the oracles, so that you can know that person that you're with is walking down in the same path direction as you. And I just thought that was so amazing with the two of you. How your life's works have intersected that way. And it sounds like you're owed a check, and a lot of other people are owed a check. He has the receipts on who got wealthy from this industry, and you have the documentation of who was working for who.
I love it. Yes.
So I think we need to get paid, y'all. It takes it out of speculation, and how are we going to know who's going to get paid? I mean, you
and from whom?
Right. So why should people come to Kamitfest to hear what you have prepared? Kamitfest, part of our theme is about the future. The world is going through such powerful changes, with technology. And I know one of our historians, Dr. Claude Anderson, says that technology is not a friend of Black people, in the sense that whenever there's been technology, it's replaced us, which you can look at in different ways. But, we have this tremendous impact, robotics, artificial intelligence, all of this type of this displacing technology. And we find our people in such a position of destabilization here in this country. So part of our theme is, what's the strategy? And we want to talk to you. We want to talk to Dr. Small. We want to talk to Dr. Asante. We want to talk to historians, Shechem or Shechem, who have the lay of the land in terms of, hundreds of years of historical patterns, right? So that we can talk to our younger people about what they need to do to prepare, and what type of personal, spiritual technology and things, and networks, networks of families, to be able to navigate into this future. So, what are your thoughts about that? I know you have children,
Mhm.
and you've transited through the whole experience of getting an education, advanced degrees, and then establishing your career. And as a professor, you are teaching and counseling younger people
Mhm.
on a day-to-day basis. So what are your thoughts about that, and what you're going to share on this coming Sunday?
Mhm. Well,
Oh, and we didn't talk about your tour and what you're doing, so we got to get that into before Dr. Small jumps in here with us.
okay. Well, our ancestors were the first technologists, right? We have some of the oldest technology in the world. And so much of modern technology is built on what we've developed. So I think that we shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't feel as if it is other to us. I think the way that we should approach it is to figure out and develop it so that it enhances our lives. And I think, for my students at Carnegie Mellon, one of the things that we pride ourselves on in Dietrich College, the STEAM and the STEM people can develop things, and it's like you can do anything, but to get them to think, say, about the ethics of it, to get them to think about, should you do it? And if you're doing it, that you're actually doing it, you're developing this new technology, you're developing it for people, right? You're developing it to solve a real world problem that is going to help actual people, not just develop it just because you can.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there is a lot of um, work that can be done, not only on developing the technology itself, but then using that technology to solve some of these irascible problems that are still in our world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have to be at the table. We have to be at the forefront so that this new technology is going to help our people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So I don't know how much you want to disclose, but can you are running the country right now. Can you share some of how this book has been received,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the types of events that you've been a part of, and where you think this might go?
Ooh, well, I will say that recently in October, Combahee won I won my first national award for Combahee, and this is from AUGS, the Association of Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society.
Let's
The
clap it up in the chat, y'all. Let's clap it up in the chat.
Thank you. The Marshall M. Greenlee History Award. And so Combahee, we're just beginning the award season for Combahee. It will go on probably until 2026, and has been nominated for all kinds of awards. I've been on book tour since February of this year, since the book actually before the book came out, and done a number of events from Miami to Boston. Um, and just yesterday, I came back from Kansas City. I did a roundtable at the conference, Southern Historians Association joint meeting with the Western Historians Association, with one of my colleagues from Harvard, Taya Miles, who has published a biography of Harriet Tubman this year. So we had a wonderful roundtable, and I had two events in Kansas. Went to Osawatomie, Kansas, which is John Brown's country. And there's a very strong John Brown connection to Harriet Tubman and the Combahee River Raid, and then to the Watkins Museum in Lawrence, Kansas. So I've been doing bookstores, museums, universities, historical societies, community events, all kinds of events, just trying to get this book in front of readers. And it's always such a joy to introduce people to the story, to the history, this very dramatic episode of the Civil War, to the new research on Harriet Tubman, and to the freedom seekers, to the Combahee freedom seekers. And the reception has just been phenomenal. It's been phenomenal.
So where's it going?
Ooh. Well,
we in our meditations right here.
Yes,
we got a
yes.
bunch of spiritual powered people on this webinar right now. A lot of folks, peace everybody. I want to reintroduce. This is Dr. Edda Fields Black, the author of Combahee, which is the story of the Combahee River Raid, led by one of our greatest ancestors in spirit women, Harriet Tubman. And she has traced her genealogy back to actually one of the soldiers in the Black regiments back in those days that risked their lives going back into hostile territory to liberate their brothers and sisters and fellow. I love the story about burning the rice plantation, and liberating folks. And she actually went down and walked in those rice fields.
Yeah. I was in residence with the group of scientists that I've been working with since 2017. I collaborated with a private research center on the Combahee, and it's called Nemours. One of the plantations that forms Nemours, 12,000 acres of coastal wetlands, was raided in the Combahee River Raid. I'll talk a little bit about that on Sunday. And so during COVID, right as we were allowed to travel again, I started going down for 18 months. And I would go down once a month for 10 days and live on this rice plantation. I got to know the current owners of the plantations that were raided. And so I would hike through the rice fields. So when I tell you what the alligators were doing, I know the alligators. And I tell you, you cannot see your hand in front of your face. I know this because I experienced it. The group of scientists and I did a number of reenactments, and I'll talk a little bit about that on Sunday. We reenacted different parts of the raid, the flight up and down the river, as well as the enslaved people getting from the rice fields at 4 a.m. out to the boat. And a lot of collaborations. I also collaborated with the International African American Museum, Center for Family History. They are located in Charleston. They were the ones who helped me find my ancestor. And he doesn't have a pension file, but they found his brother. So, and we didn't even know he had a brother, right? We didn't know anything but Hector Fields, father to son, down to my grandfather, no siblings. Okay. And so a lot of people came together. The current owners, the museum, Nemours, the private research center, and one of the families whose plantation was destroyed helped me to identify Mr. Minus Hamilton, who, along with Harriet Tubman, is the star of the show.
Wow. And you said it, so we're going to see it because this needs to be on the big screen. So
yes.
I don't know if you've had the pleasure of meeting Professor James Small, and I think his technology is on, and he's over here. I want to bring Professor Small. I want to bring you to the stage, just so the two of you can see each other for a minute. Now let's see. It's kind of. Maybe is your camera on, Professor Small? Oh, you might have got disconnected. Okay, I'm sure he'll pop back in here.
Okay.
So yeah, we have Sherry Onk, Francine Leonard, Nebatep, Kamara. Yes. Jack Mapira, Phyllis, Jamie Green. Everybody's enjoying this discussion. Let's see if we can get Professor Small on. There he is.
There he is.
Blessing.
You've got to excuse me. I'm sitting in the Magic Johnson Studio Theater lobby
Okay.
because I got a call from my boss tonight from the Godfather Harlem that says Elvis is having a debut of his new film, Mr. Crockett. I can't make it. You got to go. So we just finished the film. Then the question and answer. So I said the lobby is the best place to work from right now.
Okay.
I listened to a little bit. I was able to listen to a little, Doctor. And, you know, I'm from South Carolina. I grew up on a rice plantation. I walked in the banks of those rice fields with the alligators and the water moccasins and all of that. And walking around, my son asked the other day, how did y'all do that? What did y'all do when you saw the snake? Mind your business. You saw the alligator? Mind your business. Let them go about their business. You didn't mess with them. They didn't mess with you. I'm looking forward to reading your work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Where are you from in South Carolina?
Georgetown.
Oh, you're from Georgetown, so you're from up there. Okay.
It's about 60 miles north of Charleston, but right on the ocean. I grew up on the Waccamaw PD riverbanks.
Okay. So if you've been south to Beaufort?
Of course, there are a lot of family in Charleston, Beaufort, Savannah.
Okay. So then you know the Harriet Tubman Bridge.
I know the bridge. I know the story. I've always been in love with how the South Carolina volunteers led the charge when it comes to fighting for the Union, long before the Massachusetts 54th was formed, and how Harriet came down there and led our people. You know, we have a lot to be proud of, and she's one of the most extraordinary heroes we've got.
We do. And I should say that my collaborator, John Weinglass, the composer, is from the Georgetown area. His dad, his father's from the Georgetown area. Yeah, so it's a very small.
I knew some Weinglass. There's only one big Weinglass family down there.
I was going to say, it's not, you don't think it's a very common name, but Georgetown and Colleton seem to have the two Weinglass families. Don't know if they're related, but that's wonderful.
So this is the book, Doc.
No, I'm gonna get it.
Show the spine, Oa. There you go. No, the other way.
Work.
I'm just finished Nana and Ketsia's 800 pages, so I can handle you. You know, I'm a LaRon Bennett person with the big, thick books. So,
the ancestors had a lot to say.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of stories to tell.
Absolutely.
So I just want to, I'm just tingling right now. And, you know, Dr. Small, we spoke the other day about, you know, how coming up we were able to have these live and in-person experiences with great individuals, you know, like Dr. Ben Yakanen and you know, Ben
Sturdima, answer to the beautiful heavenly self, Jeffries, Hilliard, brothers.
Yes. And I want to encourage you, if you're hearing about this, to come in person, you know, to do what it takes, because it's not just getting the information, you know, it's feeling the spirit and also making the connection. You know, our younger people really need a lot of mentorship, and we had some great mentors coming up, you know, that we could walk up to after a lecture and have a conversation with and network and know each other over the years. So we are so thrilled and honored. I was sharing earlier this is our 29th year since we started Kamitfest. And Professor Small, you were here, I think it was the first year.
I think so.
Yep.
I didn't have a gray beard then. I wasn't bald headed.
Yeah, neither did I. I had a lot more here. It wasn't coming out of strange places. So you really want to take the opportunity to meet these individuals in person and have a chat, and be a part of that experience. So I want to thank you, Dr. Fields Black, Pepper Roche, for really being an example of a woman who has it all. When I think about you, I think about how wonderful it is that you've excelled in your personal and spiritual development. You've maintained a beautiful family. You have an outstanding career, and you're also just a person that anybody can call on in service to the African community. And we saw that in the work that you did with our sister from Senegal, and helping her family. So we appreciate being with you, and that out of this tour that you are on, that the ancestors made it possible for you to jump in there with us on Sunday. So we're looking forward to that. And we're looking forward to the big surprise that's going to happen in conjunction with your coming.
Okay, I look forward to it. And I will have books for sale on Sunday. So if you're in person, you can come and get your book signed. I just wanted to put in a plug. You said, where do I see Combahee? I do see Combahee on the stage or on the screen. And Combahee prizes. Combahee is running right now for some big prizes.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody is pulling for Combahee to bring home some gold. I like gold, Combahee. So we say, run, Combahee, run.
We will be seeing that in our libations and our meditations. Yes. Because that's where it needs to be,
Yes, we have to elevate. Our stories need to be elevated, right? And we need to really get them out there to our people. And for some of our young people, that's what they're waiting for. That's what they're looking for.
And some of our young people are not even aware that it might be illegal to teach that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It's a full peace and blessings.
It's cool.
Professor Smalls.
Yes, sir.
In Harlem, USA, huh?
I'm actually in Harlem in the Magic Johnson Theater in the lobby. I was trying to do it in the car while I'm driving. Then there was not enough light, so I suddenly run back in the theater so I could take advantage of the light.
You look and you sound great.
Good.
So again, it's an honor to welcome you back after 29 years to a Sarasota annual Kamitfest celebration.
I'm honored. Sarasota has been the light for decades on decades around the world. I mean, in the UK, and Detroit, and New York, and people don't realize, I think, that sometimes the younger people don't know the history and the lineage of a Sarasota. Mm-hmm. And that's our fault, of course. We should have been better at propagandizing. Mm-hmm. I can't think of a better word, but if that's a good word, advertising, and let people know there's an institution that goes back historically and brought forward our history and our spiritual system in practice. Mm-hmm. So that's what's beautiful about the Sarasota Society, was practice, that you practice the system. Mm-hmm. You didn't just talk about the system. And you created communities around the world to teach the history, culture, and the spiritual system. Mm-hmm. And that's important. That's essential if we're going to be victorious.
Yes, and we, of course, give thanks and honor to Shechem Ra Unefer Amen, without whom I would not be sitting here.
Absolutely.
I was 21 years old and in Philadelphia, looking forward to graduating and questioning what my purpose in life was. And there was no job description for a traditional African king. There was no job description for a priest, you know. But I felt that spirituality was the key, and I was so fortunate to find the right instruction and find my ancestral home. So yeah, we're looking forward to you coming down and enjoying what you have to share, and also you being strengthened, empowered to continue this great contribution that you've made over all of these years. So again, if you're hearing about this, you got to do what it takes to be there in person. So you can shake Dr. Small's hand. You can network. You can be there to get the energy, not just the information. You know, YouTube is great. We're on YouTube right now, but there's nothing like being in person and actually feeling the spirit, especially for people like Dr. Small, who is an elder in the community. And when we say elder in the African sense, it doesn't mean you're old. It means your experience. You've seen everything. 2 or 3 times.
I'm old too, and that's all right. I don't mind. I just turned 79 last week, and so that was a good 79 years remembered.
Wow.
So, but I understand the principle of being involved in struggle since I'm 14 years old, not miss a day at work. It's the blood that allows you to go forward. The spirit of the ancestors, for those of us who listen and allow them to have their way, will guide us through so much to do good for our people while we learn how to better ourselves as a divine being in this universe. So I'm just blessed and honored that my ancestors chose me, and I know I haven't been as obedient as I should have been, but I tried my best to learn as much as they could teach, you know.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you to share a little bit with the audience, especially those younger folks who are watching this or who might watch the recording, a little bit about your journey to developing your African consciousness. You had such a powerful background. Can you just share a little bit about what led you to that pursuit of knowledge of self?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the house of an African priestess. We call them a root women in the Low Country. And my grandma was the root woman in our area, which is the Georgetown County area. I didn't live in the city. I lived on a rice plantation between Paul's Island and Georgetown. And so when I went to Africa, I realized I grew up in an African village like any African in Africa, having grown up in those woods by that river with those people who are my ancestors. And my grandpa, who was a fighter, the head of the Prince Hall Masonic Lodge down there, member of the Odd Fellows and the Knights of Pythias. And he also was in the Moorish Science Temple, but he was the minister of a Baptist church. You know, most Baptist church in the early days were just sanctuaries for African culture. Today, we've gone into white theology. But back in the day, it was African culture hidden in the only sanctuary white people allowed us to have. And so I grew up in that community. So by the time I'm 14, I remember we were picketing the Strand Theater in Georgetown. And my papa, Mr. Andrew Small, and his friend, Brother Nesbitt, they didn't want their children humiliating themselves, begging to go into white theater. So every Wednesday, I don't know where they got the projector from or where they got the movies from, but every Wednesday in our church, we went to the movies. And we didn't have to protest to be a part of nobody's nothing. I didn't fully understand it then, but later I understood that was a high level of integrity that they pulled off for us. And I remember the first movie they showed in the church was Hop Along Cassidy. You may be a little too young to remember Hop Along Cassidy. It was a cowboy movie. But growing up in that environment, my stepfather was my father, Mr. Paul Johnson, who's from Santee. That's another one of those maroon areas between Charleston and Georgetown. He was a part of the labor movement here in New York after he came to New York. He was a union organizer, a labor organizer. And my mom was just in the movement all of her life. I mean, she was teaching us African history when I was still in junior high school. But one of the greatest assets to my life, besides my grandmother and grandfather and great-grandmother, who I knew very well, and my mom and dad, and my mother had 12 children, so I'm number seven of 12. You know, we were an army, and my uncle had 40 children, you know, and so we, just a small family was an army unto itself. But I went to school in a one-room classroom from first grade to seventh grade, taught by one teacher, the same teacher. And she taught first grade, second grade, third grade, for all of the grades, first to seventh, was in this one room. And she managed to teach all of us, you know. And then I went to Georgetown, to an all-black high school, Howard High. I never had a white teacher or professor until I joined the U.S. Navy after high school. And then, of course, in the colleges of the Northeast. So I grew up in a black world that resisted white tyranny. Georgetown had a massive black community because Georgetown was one of the largest, it was the rice belt. You had the Santee River, the Pee River, the Waccamaw River, the Sanford River, and the Black River. All of those rivers flows to Georgetown County. And on the banks of all of those rivers, going for 40 plus miles, was rice fields. Understand? But it was also malaria, mosquitoes. So whites left us alone pretty much for 6-7 months of the year to run our own lives. And so coming out of that environment, which we call the Freewood black folks, I'm not going to use the N word, that's what they called us back then. But that the Freewood ends were the maroon community of South Carolina. That's what they call us. And we called ourselves that pretty much. We were the Freewood end. You don't come up in here. White folks didn't start coming in the areas that was our maroon areas until in the 1960s. We managed to maintain our integrity up until that point. Now, as youngsters, we didn't appreciate and understand all of this. As after I look back years, having left home, got involved with Malcolm X at 16, became the imam of a Malcolm's mosque at 21 after he was assassinated, was his sister's bodyguard for 18 years, you know, served as a member of OAU, Black Panther Party, worked with all of the men and brothers who formed the Black Liberation Army, because most of them came out of the OAU, Malcolm X Youth Division. Sekou Adenga, Zaid Shakur, Lumumba Shakur, Matula Shakur. We all knew each other as young people and worked together in the political movement. And so that's the foundation of my life. I come out of that crucible. And during that period, we met people and was taught by Dr. Clark, Dr. Jeffries, Dr. Ben, Dr. Jacob Carruthers out of Chicago, Dr. Asa Hilliard out of Atlanta, Dr. Francis Welding. And I don't mean casually. These are people I spent years with, working in the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization, ASCAC, being a part of the founding group, working as a part of the AHSA, founded by Dr. Clark and others in 1969. That was the African Heritage Studies Association, you know, working as a part of the National Black Studies Association. And then teaching for 18 years at the City College of the City University of New York under Dr. Leonard Jeffries in the Black Studies Department. So that's my background, among a whole bunch of other stuff, movement stuff. I started studying in the Yoruba tradition in 1967. Baba Surgiman, who would be along with Chifa Jamu and Mama KK, and these are the great leaders of the Yoruba tradition in North America. Before they built the village in South Carolina, they had lost their buildings in New York, and I allowed them to meet in the Yoruba temple in my mosque on Sundays, you know, which didn't make the Muslim community very happy, because there was an attempt on my life because of that. Wow. But I didn't back away from my brothers and sisters, because the Yoruba community and the Akan communities were the two greatest supporters of Malcolm X after he left the Nation of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are some of the things I would be writing about that a lot of people don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
Or Malcolm's relationship with Bumpy Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He and Bumpy were friends when they were youngsters, before Malcolm went to jail and before Bumpy went to prison. And they would meet up again in 1957, I think. Bumpy was out of jail and Malcolm was now a minister of the Nation of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank God I've been able to be a consultant on the movie Godfather of Harlem, which is about the life of Bumpy Johnson and his relationship to Malcolm X and Adam Clayton Powell, as they try to take Harlem back from the white mafia who took it over while Bumpy was in prison. So, you know, my life has just been gifted and blessed. And I got to meet the great Shechem through Dr. Leonard Jeffries decades ago when the headquarters was in the big fort, the Arsenal on Atlantic. Was that Atlantic Avenue?
The Armory on Dean Street.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he meeting this great teacher way back then, and then coming to so many of the different affairs that was held by the Somerset Society in New York, and watch how they handle themselves spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And how they greeted people from other spiritual tradition. There was no rejection. There was like, you ain't one of us, you know, you can't come up in here. That was not a part of the Somerset tradition.
Right.
And so I learned a lot from this society.
Mm-hmm.
I would bump into them in the UK. I would bump into them as I move around the country, you know, carrying on the same tradition, spreading the culture, spreading spirituality, talking about Kemet before most people knew to call it Kemet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Teaching about Kemet before there was an ASCAC or any of the other groups, not putting them down, but these groups would come much later after multiple books. And remember the set of cards that the society put out
Yes.
to teach you the deities, the netters.
Mm-hmm.
All these things was happening before there was a happy, before there was a ASCAC, before there was many of the people who now have priestcraft and teaching what they're teaching. Is good because I think most of them learned from this society.
Mm-hmm.
And people should grow and branch off into other directions. We just hope that they maintain the integrity of our culture and the integrity of our sacred science, which we call our spiritual system.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's some of what I'll be talking about on Saturday. And I will be there with you all day Sunday. I'll come back home probably Sunday night because my wife says you get one night's sleep out of this house because you've been gone for a month and a half. And the last month I've been to Ghana, South Carolina twice, and just returning from Atlanta, Georgia. So she goes like, this way to hold up, mister.
How long have you been married, Dr. Small?
53 years. So a beautiful young lady I met when she was 18 years old. Mm-hmm. And we got married a year later. We have 4 children and out of our marriage, and 2 children before we got married. We have 6 very beautiful children. And then I adopted another 2 in Ghana. And so altogether we have 23 grandchildren. Mm. So they've done very well. All of them are to one degree or another in one aspect of the culture or other. Mm. None of them have gone to any Western systems, thank God. Thank the ancestors. All of them have either been in the Akan tradition, the Yoruba tradition, and some have looked at the Congo tradition. But the most
we have to talk about that, Dr. Small. That's what a mark of success, that you can pass
we've
on
been
consciousness to the next generation.
Yeah, extraordinarily blessed. Mm-hmm. And I remember I had a beautiful session today with my 15-year-old granddaughter to ask her if she was ready to really get to know God. I first asked her, did she know God? And she hesitantly said yes. And so I asked, well, finally got it. She said, well, you got to ask me specific. I said, okay, is God a man, a woman, a tree, a plant, a butterfly? She said, God is my ancestors. I said, okay, well, girl, you're well on the way. So now Grandpa was going to ask you, are you going to let me now begin to tutor you? Mm-hmm. And she said, yes, Grandpa. Mm-hmm. I want to learn. So she's going to be my special student, starting today. I've been teaching her all along, but now they need to be at 15. She needs to have more specific and direct training so she can be prepared to be initiated in a year or so into one of the traditions, whichever one she's comfortable with. She was born to us out of the Akan tradition. I don't know whether you remember Nana Fuasa. She was the priest, the chief priestess of the Ashanti nation. But my daughter couldn't have any children. And so Nana came to America to see her daughter, and I took my daughter to her. And 9 months after she embraced her, blessed her, and talked to her, this little girl came. And I asked her today, do you remember the first thing you said when people asked you where you were from? She hesitated. I said, no, I'm not going to tell you. You should remember. She said, I told them I was from Ghana. That was her first full sentence. I'm from Ghana. She didn't know nothing about Ghana. She's a baby. Wow. But that baby spirit knew it came from Ghana into my baby girl and then manifests on this planet. So I told her, you're my special case, so I've got to teach you. Even if you're my last student, I've got to teach you to make sure that you don't lose your place. And her mother is I've inherited my grandmother, the root lady's priestess spirit. And so I've been teaching her through the years, along with others who have helped me greatly, so that she can learn the craft of healing and medicine, of just handling the spirit in terms of your intellect, your cosmic intellect. And so these are some of the things I'll talk about this weekend, and some of the experience I've had through the years, personal experience, encounter everything from assassination attempts to building institutions, to training young brothers like the Sons of Africa, who we pulled together at City College, who are still working together after 40 years of maintaining the pilgrimage to Malcolm X's grave for what is now almost, 60 years. And so these things to show young people we can do certain things, but you have to turn back to the divine. From an African spiritual perspective, you must return back to your ancestors and know how they are you and you are they, and begin to learn what our mission in terms of cosmology and ecology, how do we study the cosmos, how do we study the environment we live in, how do we realize our relationship to both, and live a life that can lead to the true freedom of our people, because we're not going to win freedom through the barrel of a gun. We tried that one. And even in Africa, in all the wars we fought and all the tens of thousands killed with the barrel of the gun, we're not free yet. Not in Mozambique, not in Angola, not in the Congo, not in Namibia, not even in Zimbabwe, where we had one of the greatest struggles. So it has to go beyond that barrel of the gun. Not that I'd say have one, I got a few, and I keep them where they're supposed to be. But we have to transform our spiritual self, transform our intellectual self into a higher divine self that understands cosmology and ecology and our relationship to it. And then put it to practice. Because it'd be one thing just have an intellectual conversation, dissertation. We got a lot of that going on. But how do you practice that knowledge on a day-to-day basis, an hour-by-hour basis, a minute-by-minute basis? Live the life that you're teaching about. And when you do that, the cosmos will reach into your soul and teach you more of what you need to know, so you can teach others. So there it is. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. I can feel you. So right on time, because our theme is, this impending changes that are going on in the world, the seeming acceleration of technology and, what it means for our people, and what are we going to lean on to enable ourselves to survive and then to ultimately to flourish.
Right. Because the one mistake we make when we talk about spirituality, we get it caught up in what I call European mysticism, disguised as spirituality. We forget that spirituality has to do with being healthy, physiologically healthy. Spirituality has to do with what you eat, when you eat, what you wear. Spirituality has to do with the ability to provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security for yourself and your family. You know, spirituality has to do with controlling the land, labor, and resources in the environment you live in. If you separate your conversation on spirituality from those things, you're still walking in darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So
from your perspective, having been an imam, having been initiated into the Yoruba tradition and so on, how were you able to transition? I mean, you spoke a little bit about your background and where you came from,
right?
But a lot of us get trapped in separation of religious practices.
Yeah, all of them are trying to find the same place. Some are just better tooled than others. And so what we're trying to find is the divine in ourselves and ourselves in the divine. And greatly what we're trying to find, what is the divine? I have a simple way of saying it. It's every and all things at once, including you. Okay? But how do we understand that when the Yoruba says, I'm going to talk about 10 orishas, we have a problem when the voodoo say, I'm going to talk about 10 lowats, or a problem when those who study Kemet says, I'm going to talk about 10 netches, or when the Muslim says, I'm going to talk about 10, what is it called? It's called the beautiful names of Allah. They're all the same principles. They're the principles that our ancestors have figured out as the governing tools for the universe. You know, those principles in all those different traditions I just named makes up the laws that governs the universe, you know, and governs the ecology and governs cosmology, you know. And so I suddenly realized, well, I didn't realize it, the ancestors showed me that the only difference is our ignorance, you know, our ignorance of everyone is on the same journey, trying to define the divine within and without. And they get confused by the methodology. Religions are methodologies to help you along the journey. It's not even the journey itself. And they're methodologies. And we confuse the methodology with the goal. You see, like we have arrived at a goal when we begin to practice these religions. No, those are methodologies. And some are inferior to others. You know, some are not as developed as others. All of them come out of the tradition we call Kametian. And the Kametian tradition comes out of the greater tradition of the southeastern and south central part of Africa, Congo, Sudan, Ethiopia. But in Kemet, it saw a synthesis that took it to its highest level. You understand? And everything else grows out of that. Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, are all attempts by other ethnic nations to copy and put into practice that which they encountered when they encountered Kemet. You know? So once the ancestors began to show me, and through many ways in dreams, you know, and I began to learn that dreams is more than something that happens to you when you sleep. I think I was about, it was 1968 when that message came. I was about to go to California to live with my older brother in the mountains. And I had a dream about the house on the plantation in South Carolina. And me and one of my brother, an older brother, was there. And we both had these big snakes flying with us and flying around us. And they were colorful snakes, almost the colors of the rainbows. And he was killing his snake. But I embraced mine. And I went to him and I'm screaming, don't do that. Don't kill that. Because that's you. That's you. That's your spirit. That's your soul. That's you. I'm screaming and I wake up out of my dream screaming this. because it was so real. And then mine just sailed off into the forest, cutting a path through the trees going towards the river. And I used the word, I remember in my dream, that your soul is the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah is your soul. And I just began to study Kabbalistic history at that time. So that's when I first realized that there's something outside of you teaching you, but you got to listen, you know, and you got to take the teaching seriously, and you got to follow where it leads you, and then practice what you learn.
Yeah, so interesting, because we know the role the serpent plays in Kemet, and how the elevated life force then becomes your protective power. And also, of course,
And at that time, I knew nothing about Kemetic history, you know, but I would learn so much later about the serpent.
So were you able to heal your brother's snake over time?
Oh, yes. It took him years, but he found his way back to his spirit self, you know, off into the European world, off into, you know, off into doing all the things people do, the drinking, the so forth. And then one day he was getting a divorce, and he didn't read or write very well. And he called me and asked me, could I come with him to sign these papers and help him read the papers? And I realized I didn't know until then my brother couldn't read very well, couldn't write very well. And during that period of a couple of months, us being together like that, they always supported me, though, no matter what I was doing. My family, that was a blessing from the divine. No one in my family ever spoke against me, but they were there. My parents would kill them or speak down to me or on me. They knew I was doing something that was good for the family. And I remember when I was about 28, all my siblings got together down in South Carolina and made a trophy for me and sent it to me, and it just said the family hero. Just one of those little statue things you buy out of the souvenir, the trophy stores. But they appreciated what I was doing, even though they didn't understand it enough to see me as the family hero, you know? And so when I went south 2 weeks ago to my younger sister's 75th birthday, you know, you just see love at a level and a pitch that you don't see it when you're away from that blood clot that you came out of, you know? And so many, I think we were in a restaurant owned by one of my nephews, and there had to be at least 300-400 family members, most of whom I hadn't seen in 50 years.
Wow.
But they all knew me. They watched the YouTube. They watched my Zooms. I didn't know those kids were paying attention to me at all. I was busy thinking I'm talking to the rest of the world. And I went 2 weeks before that to a funeral, and I walk into church, and the minister, the young female minister in the pulpit, who was born after I left home, was my relative. The bishop sitting behind it was my relative, Shep, who I hadn't seen since the day I left home for the Navy, the day after graduation. And she stopped the funeral service of my older brother, Marshall, to say, Professor James Smalls just walked in the church. They go, wow, because they respect what I've been fighting for and stood for with my life. And I felt so honored. I felt a little embarrassed, but I was honored that those youngsters felt I was worthy, you know. And that makes you feel good that you haven't been out here just talking and teaching for nothing. And then they talk to you and say, you know, I've watched you on this, and some of them start quoting me, and I go, wow, you know, they're quoting me. That makes you feel really good, you know.
Well, we feel the same way. So I know you're out with the family, and I appreciate you took this moment. I just want to ask you before you run, why people should come out on Saturday, and how you plan on addressing, or what your thoughts are about our biggest obstacle as a people right now.
Say that one again.
Our biggest obstacle as a people right now, our biggest challenge.
Well, I think our biggest challenge is the same challenge we've been struggling with for decades, and that's the one of knowing thyself.
Mm.
And a part of knowing thyself is knowing our spiritual self. Part of knowing thyself is knowing our divine self. Part of knowing ourselves is mastering the history that we have evolved through. You know, I use the term history will erase the enemy's mystery.
Mm.
And so the history will give you the opportunity and the platform to seek out your spiritual strength, which is always there around you. But your life is so cluttered with his mess, his lies, his distortions, that you can't see yourself walking down the street and look around and see, oh my God, grandma's right there. Oh my God, grandpa's right there. Oh, great nanny's right here with me. Oh, daddy's right here. They're walking with me. No one can see them, but I know them. They're here because I feel them.
Mm.
They're not only walking with me, they're walking as me.
Mm.
So that's what I don't want to give up too much of what we're going to talk about,
Mhm.
but I want to leave some for the mystery.
Yes,
And,
sir.
but that's what I'll be trying to explain, knowing thyself.
Mhm.
And the best way to know thyself is to know your ancestors. And the best way to know your ancestors is to know your history. In your history is your culture and your spiritual system, your sacred science. And then learn that you must master that. That includes your medicine. That includes your language. That includes your intellect, all of those things. But it starts with trying to learn the history of your family, with your family tree. Who was my grandma? Who was my mom? Who was my pa? Where did they come from? You know, where did their parents come from? What part of the country did they come from? Did they come from South Carolina, North Carolina, Mississippi, Arkansas? What was that area of the world? What tyranny did they have to live through? Because that tells you who you are. You wake up the spirit.
Mm.
You wake the spirit up in you. And the
Mm.
spirit you wake up will teach you to find the other spirits within you.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that's where we're going to be going.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Small. And
Okay, my brother.
we are excited, waiting to greet you. And shout out to my brother Kesmani Haru. He's taken that pilgrimage with you many years to the grave of Malcolm X and Dr. Ben
Yes, sir.
up
Yes,
there in the Bronx. So we're all waiting anxiously to greet you and to spend this quality time with you.
I know I'm going to see so many of my brothers and sisters that I haven't seen in decades. So I'm looking forward to Saturday and Sunday.
All right. Thank you so
my
much.
brothers.
Thanks to your family for letting you
I will.
stake out in the lobby for us.
Yeah, they understand. All right. Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.
Okay, cool.
Yes. All right. I see y'all in the chat. Some fire in the chat. What a powerful, beautiful Kamitfest we're going to have. So I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Yes, there will be a replay of this. You can use the same link to come back and check it out again. If you are on our YouTube channels, we're on the Sarset PA and the Comedic Legacy YouTube channels. The recording will be there and available. And also on our Facebook, Heteru Healers Facebook page, Ra'un Ephraim Facebook page. And I'm not sure if it's stored on Instagram, but we will be rebroadcasting this on some other channels that we have from our communities around the country and around the world. So I look forward to seeing you all on Saturday, November 2nd. That's this coming Saturday, November 2nd, at our Kamitfest. Started 29 years ago. And this year, we have the opportunity to have not only Professor James Small with us, we have Dr. Malefe Asante, the father of Afrocentricity, is going to be with us. He's going to be speaking before Dr. Small on Saturday. Dr. Small will speak at 6 p.m. Dr. Asante will speak at 4 p.m. And we also going to get a visit from Dr. Salim Faraji. You might have seen him in our last episode of this Kamitfest preview. And, that's three scholars addressing our survival in the changing world ahead. Now, before that, we're going to be focusing on self-healing, on how we need to take care of, we need to, in the words of our brothers and sisters here in Philadelphia, you got to respect the gap. You got to take care of your health, your vitality, your life force. So it's going to be power-packed at 1 p.m. with Dr. Akmal Muwakil, who will be with us for the whole weekend doing Twina and Qigong therapy on people, and also talking to us about a class, a training. This is another one of our elders in his 70s, incredible shape. And he's looking to pass this wisdom on. So if you or any young people are thinking about career, about expanding in the health services, are thinking about what you can do, and getting some high-level training in terms of real holistic healing, this is a brother that you want to meet, you want to experience what he's going to share with us at 1 p.m. and then learn about the classes and training that's going to be available. At 2:30 p.m., we're going to have our, we usually call it that vegan life, because thanks to the work of our great teacher, Shechem Ra'u Neframen, we've been vegan since 1974. We were vegan before vegan was cool. We were vegan before a supermarket didn't know anything about any vegan products. Now you go into any supermarket and there's something that you can deal with. But in those days, you had to go to a special co-op, or maybe a health food store just to buy your groceries. So we have a lot of experience with that. And thanks to his teachings, our members have enjoyed very good health over all of these years. Now we're in our 51st year as a society, and that foundation is based on a healthy lifestyle, right? You got to have that. You got to have that vitality, that strength, and that spirituality to help you to transcend stress and the stress response. So we're going to be dealing with that on Sunday. We are going to have our first public Paut Neteru meditation. What is that? That is the core of the practice that has kept us strong over all of these years. You heard Dr. Small talk about the dream and different powerful things that have happened in his spiritual experience. Well, Asar said we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of experiences, testimonials, of people getting powerful results, healings, removal of obstructions, protection, advancement in their careers and their lifestyle. You heard Dr. Fields Black talk about that. And it's all through the Paut Neteru meditation. That's the process of awakening those 11 faculties within your spirit. So we do a group meditation internationally. We do it every Sunday, as a community. So that's been a private and will continue to be an internal, ritual that we do. But we are now prepared to open up a Paut Neteru meditation to the public. So you're going to be able to participate in that on a regular basis, right? Every month. So the first one will take place on Sunday, November 3rd at 11 a.m. If you're going to be with us, you put on your nice white ritual clothing and come, or you can jump on Zoom and you can experience what a Paut Neteru meditation and committed spirituality is all about, right? You can taste that for yourself. And then at 2 p.m., we're going to hear about more from Dr. Edda Fields Black and her work on Combahee. And we have some special surprises for you if you attend that. That's going to be quite mind-blowing. At 3:30, my person will be talking about AI. AI to us stands for astrological intelligence. It's not the artificial intelligence, it's the netter intelligence. And we will be releasing the 2025 Paut Neteru calendar and meditation journal. So we're going to talk about the fact that our lives and the events in our lives are being facilitated by spiritual forces. And we have a schedule. We have a calendar that actually shows you what aspect of God's spirit is manifesting in a particular lunar cycle, and how you can harmonize your activities, your projects, your personal growth and development, your goals, your business with those divine intelligences to propel you to greater success. And then at 5 p.m. is going to be the keynote address from Shechem Winnefram Men, talking about the keys to empowering your manifestations. And he's going to be releasing a new course, a new digital course and book. And it's on a new platform called ComiticLegacy.net. You're going to hear about that and all the classes and events that we have coming up for the rest of the year and into 2025, and how you can be a part of that in a powerful way. Brother Amari Rebels Band is going to be here on Saturday. We have Baba Karamogo and his drum orchestra. So we have some powerful entertainment lined up. We have some spoken word. We have some young people that's going to be doing some spiritually grounded spoken word hip hop. So it's going to be a great time. So make sure you get your ticket now. You can get your ticket for both days, even if you can only come one day, or if you're going to be on Zoom, because you're going to get a recording of everything that transpires on our replay page. And let me see if this has refreshed, because some of y'all need to do what I'm going to do, and that is get me some serious healing treatments. Here it is. So we have Dr. Chester Phillips Derdench Mashani, and also Dr. Atangwe, a power couple. And you're going to get some counsel and some treatment in a holistic manner through traditional Chinese medicine, as well as integrated medicine. What is integrated medicine? It's the practice of knowing how to navigate. Some of us have high blood pressure already. We have diabetes. We have certain conditions, and there's medications that we need to be on to survive, right? And you might want to have a more natural or holistic approach. So you need to talk to somebody that's qualified to help you to navigate that. Is that appropriate for you? Or how can you, use other modalities to offset the side effects or negative effects of medications that you might have to take? Or how you can even safely transition away from those medications if that's possible. So if you click this button on our website, you can make an appointment, and I'm stressing that now because we're anticipating an overflow of people, and these two specific practitioners, they're only up here maybe once a month to once every 6 weeks, so they have people lined up. So if you have any concern health-wise and you want to see a very qualified and experienced practitioner, you need to sign up soon, like tonight. Because the appointments will be sold out quickly. If you want to stay here with us overnight, you can click here. You can find out what hotels, what Airbnbs are right in the area. And of course, we're going to have some good food from you. We're very blessed and grateful that through the meditations, the rituals, and the spiritual work that we've done, we've launched several businesses. One of the businesses that we've launched is called the Nile Cafe. As I said, we were vegan before vegan was cool. And we have been in business for over 20 years. We are now recognized in Philadelphia as the longest running vegan restaurant in the city of Philadelphia, and proud to be African owned and operated. We also have New Waters, which is the only African owned water purification store. And, we need to talk about that, because there's a lot of information that's come out recently you might not be aware of, that one of the biggest dangers to our health, actually two things, is the what they're calling the forever chemicals, right, that are in the environment, that are in the food, that are in the water, and also microplastics. Microplastics are in all of our bodies. And they're in the water. They're in that bottled water that you're drinking, in that plastic bottle. So we launched a company called New Waters We have a 6-stage reverse osmosis purification system. It is the only method that will remove microplastics from your water. And we've been at that for over 15 years or so. It's the water that we cook with in our restaurant. It's the only water we let touch our lips. So you want to hear about that. And that's an African-owned business as well that we've been able to launch and sustain through the power of Kemetic spirituality. That's how we've been able to do it. So we're going to welcome you in Philadelphia. You're going to have great food, great entertainment, powerful information, and we have some of the best vendors on the East Coast you're going to find. So we'll have lots of beautiful merchandise and art and so forth for you to also patronize our Black businesses. If you're interested in vending, we may still have a spot outside. I think our indoor is all sold out, but you hit the button here and fill out the form, and we'll see if we can still accommodate you. So I want to thank you for being with us tonight. And I think we're going to leave with the beautiful sound. Amen. Ankara, amen. What's up, everybody? All right. Yes, my brother from Ohio is going to be in the house. Right on. Thank you, Audrey, for being with us. Brother Carlson. Patricia. Michelle, Francine, Jacqueline, my man Ernest from Belize. Mother Pemberton. Thank you. Thank you, Atukwe. Curtis Green. All right, there you have it there. Never tap. Look forward to seeing y'all in Philly. Don't forget, Thursday night, Shechem or Shechem, Raul Nefra, amen. Thursday night, 8 o'clock. The fool.
I want to know the truth. It's been a long time, but I've been searching for then one thing that makes my life complete. And I'm gonna hold on, I'm gonna be strong, 'cause in my heart, truth I'll always see. I wanna know, I'm gonna know. So many illusions, so much confusions. I need a strong foundation, the pearl of truth that separates the dark from light, from day and night. Help me change and sacrifice the wrong.
Check. How can I find the truth? Let me count the ways. I can focus on my ancestors to brighten up my day. I can listen to a sage or an elder's wise words. Try some deep meditation where the Most High is served. Because the truth is beautiful, like children playing in the park, or inside of rhyme ciphers where genius is spark. Be the dark, the light, and all the time that's in between. And you can find mad truth inside a trance states and dream. Listen to that little voice, it be telling you for true. And with a bit of divination, show you what you gonna do. Whether it comes abstract or the stone hard fact. 'Cause if it comes from God, it be the truth, that's that. Yo, no need to question, just learn the lesson. And ain't no stretching, 'cause it's truth we're manifesting. Like what? Like what? What? 1, 2, I wanna know
Can
the
you
truth.
tell me? Can you let me know? I need to know the truth. Can you tell me? know the